Monday, March 17th edition of the Carolina Weather Video, St. Patrick's Day. And it feels more like a midwinter day out there than a mid-March day. And we have some wintry precip in parts of the region. I'll get into that, and that's what the focus of this video will be this morning. Now this is a look from our Greensboro tower camera. I'm cutting this video slightly earlier than normal, so this is at the tail end of the 4 a.m. hour. That's a look over toward the Greensboro Coliseum. The temperature is freezing in Greensboro, stiff northeast wind, and we'll see the temperatures in the Triad region drop a couple of more degrees this morning, and probably wind up 29, 30 degrees or so in many spots in that part of the region. Yesterday's highs, 50s outside of the mountains in most spots, 62 down in Columbia. Currently, again, freezing in Greensboro, Raleigh above freezing at 34, Charlotte just above freezing at 36, Boone at 30. Wind is very stiff out of the northeast all around the region, and when you factor the wind into the equation, these are our Monday morning wind chills waiting to greet you out there. It's cold, 20 degrees the wind chill in Greensboro, 27 in Charlotte, 25 the current wind chill in Raleigh, and even down toward the southeastern parts of North Carolina, Fayetteville, the wind chill sitting at 28 degrees. Now on the radar, not much up in those areas where the temperatures are below freezing at the moment. Another wave of precip, though, lifting up through western sections of North Carolina. And again, this is time sensitive. This is just prior to 5 a.m. There's the larger perspective, and what we'll see happen this morning is in this region where we have some sub-freezing temperatures, that's where we could have some relatively minor icing occurring, mainly this morning as that batch of precip moves on through. This is nothing at all like the ice storm that happened a couple of weeks ago in the Triad region, but we are talking about a glazing of ice, maybe a few hundredths of an inch of ice accumulation on some elevated surfaces, and that'll be the concern this morning. And then we'll see what happens tonight. More of that in just a second. Here's the overall setup for us. One wave of low pressure moving through, another one taking shape down in southeastern Alabama. And as we go through the course of today, again, we're going to see this batch of precip moving on in this morning. This is what it looks like on the RPM modeling today. And again, we're just looking at these little batches of mainly light precipitation moving through. And for areas I-40 and points north, it's going to be a struggle to make it a couple of degrees above freezing. In fact, areas near the Virginia border probably staying at freezing for a high, somewhere thereabouts. But then notice what happens as we get into tonight. If you read my discussion I put out yesterday morning, I mentioned there were some question marks as to exactly how much precipitation would roll through tonight. And you notice the RPM modeling has basically nothing. And certainly the trend has been for it to be a less significant round of precipitation coming in for Monday night and Tuesday morning. Some light rain, some drizzle in the form of some freezing rain in many spots, but it looks pretty light. Here's the advisory makeup this morning. The purple shaded counties, those are your counties included in the winter weather advisory. Roughly I-40 and points north. And so here's what it looks like on the surface map. There comes that second wave of low pressure moving up the coast. But what happens now is due to the orientation of the features aloft, instead of this tucking up pretty close to the coast and throwing a lot of precipitation back into the Carolinas, it's much further offshore. It doesn't really amplify as much, and so you just don't get a ton of really significant precipitation with that system tonight into tomorrow morning. And then there comes the next cold front that'll bring us some clouds and maybe a little bit of drizzle Wednesday, but the trend will be towards some nicer weather later this week. Now here's what the NAM computer model is printing out for ice accumulations, and I think this is probably a decent idea. Maybe at most a tenth of an inch of ice accumulation all totaled today, tonight, into tomorrow morning in some spots. And again, that would be roughly I-85 and I-40 in points north and west, especially there the Triad general region on up toward the Virginia border. So certainly not a huge problem, but we're talking a glazing of ice on some elevated surfaces as a possibility as this little event unfolds for us. Quick look at the ski resort area. Still skiing, and many resorts have at least one more week of skiing and riding before the season draws to a close. Some areas have more than that. Again, here's what's going on aloft, and the features here, 500 millibars, just aren't lining up correctly to get this thing to really amplify like it did on some recent model runs. So Instead of that turning kind of negative tilt and drawing that low close to the coast, it stays neutral to positive tilt, and so you end up with just that trough swinging through in fairly flat fashion. Another trough swings in Wednesday, I mentioned that, and then there's another one for Saturday. And at the surface, here's what it looks like on the European model. This is this morning's precip, and then you get into tonight. That's the precip between 8 p.m. and 2 a.m. So there's some there on the European, but it's certainly not terribly heavy. On the GFS model, it's even drier as we go through tonight. And then finally, there's the NAM model. Looks pretty similar to the European, really, as we go through this evening and on into tonight. So your ice percentages from the WPC, that's the probability of a glazing of ice, 1/100th of an inch. And then there's the 10th of an inch of ice probabilities. This is not a huge ice storm, but it could be a few slick spots on roads and elevated surfaces as we go through the next 24 hours or so. Now, late in the week, there's the European model for Saturday, the next front moving through. And I do think Saturday features the chance of some showers. But overall, Thursday and Friday look pretty good with highs pushing back up into the 60s. All right, that is it for today's edition of the video. Everybody have a wonderful day. Stay warm, and God bless.